Success forces us to confront our own worthiness, and that can be uncomfortable. And what you're experiencing here, it's known as imposter syndrome. So my mission today is to convince you that imposter syndrome is actually a good thing.
You're never too busy, too tired, too old, or too anything to pursue your dreams. Welcome to the Distracted Dreamer podcast, where you'll learn how to move all those never-ending distractions aside and chase your dreams with confidence.
Hey dreamers, it's your friend Carlene. Welcome back to the Distracted Dreamer podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. It's always such an honor to spend time with you and just for us to be together. And I wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that if you're a new listener, welcome to the Distracted Dreamer family. And I am so glad that you're here. And because you made the time to hit play and listen to this particular episode, I know that you're the type of person who values your time and you want to make the most of all the efforts that you've been putting into achieving your dreams. So to kick us off today, I got a question for you. Have you ever found yourselves hesitating or procrastinating or self-sabotaging just as things start going right? Things are going good, and then you start doubting yourself, and then you stop doing the work, and you start overthinking, right? It's all weird. But because we know we're afraid of failing, but what's going on that you're doubting yourself when things are going good? Well, guess what? You might not be afraid of failure in this case. You might be afraid of success. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive because we spend so much time working toward our dreams. So why on earth would we fear actually achieving them? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to break down why we fear success and how it shows up for us. And most importantly, how to kind of move through it so you don't keep holding yourself back. So grab your coffee or your tea, whatever your drink of choice is, get comfy, and let's dive into this. So you probably said these things to yourself before. Who am I to do this? What if people realize I don't actually know what I'm doing? Whew. Success forces us to confront our own worthiness, and that can be uncomfortable. And what you're experiencing here, it's known as imposter syndrome. You've probably heard of it. And that is when you think that you're not good enough and that everyone else is smarter, more successful, and has more to contribute than you do. Everyone feels it. And I'm looking at the research right here. I got my research. Every human being struggles with fear of being found out, also known as imposter syndrome. So that term was actually coined in the 1970s by two female researchers. And in fact, Harvard Business Review says that executives worldwide, they agree that their number one fear is being found to be incompetent. So this is a very normal thing for everybody to experience. And it's called intellectual self-doubt, where you enter a situation or you enter a room or you think about doing something. And in your own mind, you start doubting yourself. You start doubting whether or not you're able to do something. You start doubting whether or not you deserve to be in a certain place. And you start feeling worried that people are going to find out that you have no idea what you're talking about. So my mission today is to convince you that imposter syndrome is actually a good thing. And we're going to uncover why the heck success triggers the feelings of being an imposter. I mean, shouldn't we be excited about leveling up, about achieving the very things that we've worked so hard for? In theory, the answer is yes. Yes, we should be. But our brains, they don't always work that way. In fact, they kind of never work that way. So you guessed it, I'm going to geek out again with some science on this. And what they found is imposter syndrome is deeply rooted in how our brains process risk and uncertainty. So the brain's amygdala, where we do fight, flight, or freeze, right? It's responsible for detecting those threats. And it often interprets stepping into a new level of success as danger. Yeah, our brains, they don't distinguish between real physical threats like I'm being chased by a bear right now, and psychological threats like being judged or failing publicly, or in this case, achieving the success that we've always dreamed of, because it's a change and we're afraid of the change. So when we step into new territory, like being successful, our brains send out warning signals and they're screaming, are you sure you belong here? What if you mess up down the road and this success is all a fluke? Or worse, you're an imposter. Now, a study from the Journal of Behavioral Science, they found that around 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives, meaning it's not just you. Even people at the top of their fields, like CEOs, artists, athletes, they report feeling like frauds despite evidence of their competence. So competence does not always equal confidence. So today we're going to have an honest conversation about why success triggers imposter syndrome. And as we talk about these 4 common reasons, think about whether any of them feel familiar to you. If you find yourself nodding along, congratulations, you've just uncovered something important about your mindset. Now, I don't have a step system for you today. I know most of the time I have 4 steps that you can follow. That's not what today's episode is. This is really about you hearing what these triggers are as you are approaching success or have recently achieved success so that you can figure out what's holding you back. So as I'm going through these, like I said, I just want you to pay attention and see if any of them feel familiar to you. Okay? And make a note of it because there's something there for you to work on. Okay. The first reason why success triggers imposter syndrome is because success equals exposure. One of the biggest reasons imposter syndrome is triggered by success is because success often means being seen. The more successful you become, the more people notice you. More people will see your work. More people will listen to your ideas, and more people will have opinions about what you're doing. And that visibility, it can feel terrifying because it increases the risk of criticism or judgment, or worst of all, being found out. And it's enough to make you hesitate before you even step into the spotlight. So here's an example of so many of us who have built a website for our business or even our CV website, right? We spend so much energy getting it perfect. We fear that once we launch the darn thing, we're going to be flooded with all the opportunities, and we're just not ready for all of that. And we fear that people will think that our website is ugly, which my first website was so bad. But we fear putting our personal story out there. And that fear of visibility, it's real. So let's say that you've decided to step into a leadership role, but the idea of speaking in front of large groups or being seen as an authority figure, it makes you really uncomfortable. What if people criticize your ideas? The more successful you become, the more visible you are. And this is the core of imposter syndrome, the belief that you don't truly deserve your success and that sooner or later someone will expose you as a fraud. So that was number 1. Did anything come up for you there? Yeah, I bet it did. That's a big one. The exposure is a big one, and it causes us to hide. So make note of that if that felt like something that you're experiencing or you have experienced. The second reason why success triggers imposter syndrome is because success challenges our identity. So we like certainty. We like knowing who we are and where we stand. But success can push us into unfamiliar territory, and it forces us to evolve beyond our old self-perception. So maybe you've always seen yourself as the underdog, or the struggling creative, or the outsider. But success threatens to rewrite that story that you've gotten really comfortable with. Even if it's not a great story, you've gotten comfortable with it. And if you spent years identifying with that self-doubt, stepping into a version of yourself that actually owns success, it can feel so unnatural, and you feel like a fraud. So Dr. Valerie Young, she's an expert on imposter syndrome. She found that people who strongly identify with past struggles they often have the hardest time accepting success. So if you've spent years identifying as the one who has to work twice as hard, it can be really disorienting to suddenly be seen as an expert. So let's say that you publish your first book, and instead of celebrating, you're waiting for someone to call you out as a fraud. What if I'm not really a writer? What if people hate it? So instead of promoting it, you shrink away, right? That's like not your identity that you're comfortable with, that you're a published author. So what came up for you there where your success is challenging your identity? Because in order for us to grow, we do become a new person. And so that's where we're going to go next, is the third reason why success triggers imposter syndrome is because success means that we've grown. And I'm going to say it right here. Imposter syndrome is a good thing. It's a signal that you're doing something new and expanding beyond your comfort zone. And the truth is, everyone feels like an imposter when they're learning or growing or stepping into something bigger than they've done before. So instead of interpreting that discomfort as proof that you don't belong, what if you saw it as proof that you do? Okay, I've got a personal example that might help. Now, I know I've told this story before, and it bears repeating. And it really applies to what we just talked about, that success challenges our identity. And number 3 that we're talking about here, that success means that we've grown. So when I was going through all my training to be a coach over a decade ago, it felt very natural to me. It was almost second nature. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a ton of stuff that I learned in my training that I didn't know. But coaching as a practice, it felt very comfortable to me. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually stepping into a strength I never knew that I had. I'm an empath by design. I'm a patient listener. I believe people know what to do and everyone is so capable. And then my biggest aha was that I parented my girls using a coach approach long before I ever knew anything about coaching. So why, when I felt so comfortable parent coaching my girls and feeling like I finally understood what I wanted to do and why when I passed my training and got that first certification, and I say first because there were many more that followed, all in an effort to build competence when I wasn't feeling particularly confident. And that's probably another episode. But after that first certification, I got the green light from my coach. She said, "Congratulations, you're a coach." And I literally froze. I said, "What? I can just call myself a coach now?" And she's like, "Yes, you can. That's the point. Go be a coach." And I sat there and thought, but am I? Really? You see, I had grown so much as a person throughout my training, and now I'm taking on another identity as a coach. But I was mistaking all that growth, because it was new to me, as if I was a fraud. So it took some very focused work with my coach to truly understand that feeling like an imposter doesn't mean that you're a fraud. It means you're in the process of becoming. You see, I wasn't an imposter. I was a beginner. So for more than a decade of all the trainings and certifications and coaching countless others, I've been in the process of becoming the coach I am today. So the same applies to any new level of success. Now, I want to stay here and expand a little bit on another aspect of what happens when we grow, right? When our success means that we have grown. And the growth can actually sneak up on us, and it shows up as we are fearing that we're going to outgrow people or situations. And this is what I mean. Sometimes we hold ourselves back because we worry that success will create distance in our relationships. Like, what if people treat us differently? What if we lose friends who don't understand the new version of us? I mean, sometimes they don't understand the new version of us because they don't really understand what we do. And that's okay. So let's say that you left your safe corporate job and you started your own business, and people kind of judged you like, "Oh my gosh, why would she choose to do that? She had all the security. And now she's going to go out there and take all this risk." But no, you proved them wrong and you hit the $1 million mark. But every time you bring up your success to certain friends, you're not even talking about the money, but you're just sharing stories about the business or your customers or things that are going well for you. and they make passive-aggressive comments. And then you find yourself downplaying your wins so they don't feel uncomfortable. It is so natural for others to be jealous or envious of your success. It's human nature. But it can lead to hurtful comments like, "You really changed. You used to make time for me, and now you're always working or traveling or hanging out with your new friends." We don't want our success to mean that we lose our current friends. And then we start to doubt ourselves. Maybe the people who know me best are right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I'm going to fall flat on my face. Maybe this is all a fluke and I am a fraud. But what we have to realize is that when we grow, it doesn't mean that our friends are growing with us or in the same direction. No one is wrong here. It's life. And it sucks that we outgrow people. But remember, you will find people who are aligned with you and who you are today and who can be happy for you. And you deserve that. What came up for you there? Maybe you're thinking about some friends who have gone by the wayside after you made some big change in your life. Whatever it is. But what you have to remember is you should never downplay your success because you're afraid of hurting somebody else's feelings. No, you shouldn't go out there and brag about it. But you should be able to share your success with people and not have to worry about hurting their feelings. Okay, number 4. The reason why success triggers imposter syndrome is because success means we've raised the bar. So what happens if you succeed? The bar gets higher. The expectations increase. And suddenly you have more to prove, you have more people counting on you, and a new standard to maintain. And that pressure can make success feel like a trap rather than a victory. And it's easier to stay where you are than to risk reaching the next level and feeling like you're not good enough to stay there. So, success isn't just about reaching the goal, it's about sustaining it. You might feel like you're losing control of your time or your privacy or even the original vision of your dream. The unknown, it can be scarier than that familiar struggle. And deep down, we fear that once we succeed, the pressure will never stop. What if we can't keep up? What if the workload becomes too much? And the idea of having to manage expectations, both from ourselves and from others, it can be really overwhelming. Once we've reached that success, we fear that we are not good enough to ever surpass it. So we keep playing small because who needs all the pressure? And we think, I'm not good enough to ever achieve beyond this. So I have a question for you. What if imposter syndrome wasn't a red flag, but it was a green light? What if it meant you were exactly where you're supposed to be? Instead of asking, who am I to do this? Try asking, who am I becoming by doing this? Because the truth is, success doesn't require you to be perfect. It just requires you to show up, even when you feel like an imposter. And the only reason that you're feeling that imposter syndrome, is because you want to not feel like an imposter in your success. You feeling like an imposter is a good thing. It's a reminder that this is what you want. You don't want the success to suddenly vanish. There's work to do. Think about it. Like for me, I wouldn't feel like an imposter if I went to, let's say, a lawyer convention, because I don't know anything about it and I really don't have a passion to know anything about it. So I don't desire that. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it in this lawyer convention world. I'm like, I kind of don't even want to be here, right? But where I do want to be is I want to be in the place of my success, where I care about it and I have a passion and a desire to build the success even bigger. Because it's in the places that we want to grow that we feel like an imposter. Feeling like an imposter, it reminds you that you're working towards something that you want. So to wrap this up here, I want to remind you that our brains are wired to resist change, even if it's a good change, like success. It can still feel overwhelming, and our subconscious would rather stick with the familiar, even if that means staying stuck. Here's the truth. Fear of success isn't really about success itself. It's about change. You're fearing change, the unknowns that come with stepping into a bigger version of ourselves. But what if, instead of fearing that change, we trusted ourselves to handle it? What if we saw success not as a burden, but as an expansion of what's possible for us? So my challenge to you this week, and I'd love for you to hit the link in the show notes that says send Carlene a text, and notice where fear of success might be showing up for you. Are you hesitating on a project? Are you shrinking away from an opportunity? Recognize it and take one small step forward anyway. And text me, telling me what is that one small step.
I love spending time with you here. And if today's episode sparked something for you, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or come chat with me on Instagram. And thank you so much for tuning in. And your dreams are waiting for you. Your time is now. And I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Oh, and one more thing. This is the legal language. You know, the stuff that the lawyers put together, and they say that I need to read this to you. So here we go. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm just your friend. I'm not a licensed therapist. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. Got it? Good. I will see you in the next episode.